Good evening from Knoxville, Tennessee, the Food City Center, I believe we're called here. It's Jeremy Werner, Derek Piper, Illini Inquirer podcast, going live here on our YouTube channel, and thanks to all our podcast listeners out there as well. But Derek, they couldn't double dip this weekend. It was a really competitive, fun first half. Illinois takes a 36-34 lead at number 17, Tennessee. Then just became a terrible college basketball game. 31 fouls, 48 free throws in the second half. The refs lost control of this one, and it just was ugly. But Illinois not able to pull it out because their stars did not perform all that well. Terrence Shannon, 5 of 16, did end up with 22 points, a lot at the free throw line. But Marcus Domask, after his career best game, goes 2 for 11 for just 6 points. Big performances for Quincy Guerrier, 22 points. Coleman Hawkins, some ups and downs in this one, but he really helped, 12 points, 4 assists in this one. And Luke Goody was pretty solid off the bench with 8 points and 7 rebounds. But Derek, Tennessee's a pretty good team, and this is a tough place to get a win. What was your major takeaway here?
Yeah, probably that. I think that Tennessee's pretty darn good, despite having 3 losses. Obviously, they went through a gauntlet there, playing Purdue, Kansas, and then at North Carolina. But it felt like they needed this one to get back on track in terms of where they were expecting to be as a preseason top 10 team. And this building's been one of the tougher ones to get a win. When you look around the country, I think they're now 19-2 in the last 21 against high major teams in this building. So I knew it was going to be a tough one for Illinois, 21,000 strong, and it was a good environment. Yeah, it is unfortunate that it kind of got to that in the second half, where I think the game was called a little bit more, obviously ticky-tack, and it was a physical ball game in the first half too, just not as many whistles that kind of let them play through it. So that I get the frustrations of fans who say that it really got out of hand and really disrupted the flow. And even Coleman Hawkins talking about, hey, it was just kind of hard to get in a rhythm within this game. But there's no doubt that Illinois, shot too many threes, I think. I know that Tennessee kind of makes you do that with the way they defend and defend the rim and aggressive in the gaps and taking away Shannon going downhill. So Tennessee did a far better job of moving the ball and executing, having different guys take it off the dribble. And obviously Dalton Connect had a really nice stretch there that kind of regained control for Tennessee, and then they cruised on from there and had Illinois at arm's length down the stretch. So, when he scores 21 and Shannon, I know he ends up with 22, but got some garbage time points late and was 5 for 16 from the field. Like you said, Domask 2 for 11. And I thought the Coleman performance was very encouraging. I thought Quincy Guerrier's performance was encouraging as well, and even Luke Goody, especially in the first half, but not enough to get a win in a tough building on the road, and nothing that you really feel too bad about, but it would have been a nice extra helping of a quad 1 win and what this win could have meant. But you can learn from this one, and all in all, 2-1 during this last 3-game stretch. I think you'll take it.
Yeah, let's hit on the referee point. A lot of people know I don't love focusing on that, but they changed the game in the second half. We didn't get to see a replay. The internet was terrible here, so we didn't have our YouTube TV on. So I didn't get to see the hook and hold on Ty Rodgers. A lot of people were telling me it was a bad call, so I didn't see that one. But it's certainly the tide changed a little bit on that. But Illinois did foul a lot. They were reaching, they were caught reaching, but there was a lot more ticky-tack compared to what they called in the first half, right? Like the first half I loved. They let them play. It was a physical game. There's sometimes Illinois, you thought maybe they'd get a call, but they weren't calling it for Tennessee either. And I do think Tennessee was forcing the action too. Like they were getting fouls called because they were being aggressive, attacking the rim. Shannon figured that out a little bit too late, I thought, in the game. I thought he, more than anybody, probably settled a little bit on some of these contested mid-range jumpers or really long twos that I don't think Illinois wants him taking. But they also just missed shots. Like they had open shots, and Domask didn't make his. Goody airballed a couple of them. Coleman Hawkins missed some. I'm not too discouraged because the fact that you were in this game, Derek, and Domask had that game, Shannon had that game, and you still had competitive game. It's a shame that what I thought was a great first half, like a great college basketball game, turned into sometimes what I hate about college basketball when it just becomes a free throw contest and there's no rhythm. It doesn't feel like a college basketball game. So that's what I hated about this. Second half just didn't feel like it lived up to what the billing of this one should have been.
No, I 100% agree with that. I mean, I know that Tennessee had one of those against Purdue as well. Really a wrestling match and a free throw contest. And to the Vols' credit, like they definitely got downhill more effectively. They forced Illinois to be in positions to contact them, to foul them, and maybe it was. And again, those that had the access to replay have a better idea on some calls for sure. But Illinois, noticing the way the game was being called in the second half, could have, and like you said, didn't until later attack off the dribble and try to create some of those for themselves. I know that the free throw disparity really wasn't that big. I mean, 34 for Tennessee and 28 for Illinois, but there was a long stretch really as that game became a double-digit disadvantage and whatnot. Illinois was taking a large chunk of their shots from three and just really settling for jump shots and not going downhill. So I thought that was one area you could nitpick Illinois. I also thought that second chance opportunities for Tennessee led to both points and then fouls when they got the ball there at the rim and whatnot. So that was an area where Illinois just seemed to be getting beat on 50-50 balls. And I know that was something that Brad addressed in the post game as well that he was disappointed with. And early on in the game too, Tennessee just attacking Illinois off the bounce. So now I give Tennessee credit because they were moving the ball really well. They were running some good stuff offensively. They're cutting and whatnot, but Illinois had a hard time really containing the dribble drive.
Vescovi was awesome. Like he was just
really
tearing Illinois apart. Yeah.
Yep. So a first teamer in the SEC last year, hadn't been playing his best going into this one. He obviously stepped up, and they got a nice balanced attack. Tennessee did, and I felt like the better team today won. I do think that I know if this is played in Champaign, as Illinois, get that one done. I could see that happening for sure, but I do think that Tennessee probably. I mean, I feel like they outplayed Illinois for sure. They were more physical. They executed better offensively, and Illinois, if they would have made some more of those shots, then it could have been a different story. But 36 threes for the most part isn't going to be a recipe for this team to win a lot of games.
There are 3 games Illinois has shot more threes than twos. This was one of them, 36 threes to 29 twos. Marquette was another, 33 threes to 27 twos. Listen, they're open, but maybe there's a reason they're open. Right? I think that's what was so impressive about that Florida Atlantic win, Derek, was Illinois was so disciplined in not just settling for those. And listen, Tennessee's a better defensive team, I think, than Florida Atlantic, right? Like they're bigger, they're physical. Yeah. They really got into gaps. They're really – I thought this was a great test for Illinois' offense after what was such a great offensive performance. And I think they'll learn a lot from that. But I do think there was probably 8 to 10 of them that you probably would not like to have shot. Like when they go back and look at the film, and to only make 9 of them, if you make 13 of them, maybe you feel a little bit different, and you make some of the open ones, maybe you feel a little bit different. But I did feel like that was a setback for that offense. I thought that's why Tennessee, which how many threes did they shoot? 18 for the entire game. And they dominated points in the paint in this one, 38 to 24. I thought they were just more disciplined on offense and doing what they want to do. It felt like Illinois just kind of settled at times.
No doubt. Yeah, I think it did highlight again that if Shannon's not being able to go downhill, does Illinois have another guy that's really going to be able to get in the lane, get into the paint, break down a defense, and force those actions to where they got to collapse and it gets open shots for their guys. Not that Illinois didn't have opportunities they had plenty of kick out opportunities and swing passes, skip passes that guys would end up taking threes, but you want that ball to get into the teeth of the defense and force them to react. And to the Tennessee's credit, they're top 10, top 5 in the country in defensive efficiency for a reason, have been really the last 3 or 4 years under Rick Barnes. But as they contain Shannon, Illinois, it highlighted again outside of him, you weren't getting that. Guerrier had a couple of slashes to the rim. I credit him for that. I really like that about him, and something I didn't necessarily know that how advanced that part of his game was coming into Illinois. I feel like he's got that in him. Marcus he didn't have a good night, and the mid-post stuff, I thought there was it wasn't as effective as maybe as it should have been when you have some of those matchups. He a few times had Ziegler on him and wasn't able to do a ton with that. So I also didn't feel like the Illinois spaced him well enough. Like it felt like Coleman was kind of hanging out, not too far away from him, so it didn't fully isolate that side of the floor. Things that they can obviously look at and try to work on. But there aren't going to be many teams that can bottle up Terrence Shannon like that. But they successfully did it, and it definitely hindered Illinois in terms of the effect outside of that.
Yeah, when your two best players shoot 7 for 27, 1 for 11 from three, just probably not going to win. Like that's like the analysis for this one. But if that's the case, you're probably not going to win the game. I do think there's some encouraging things from this game, Derek. The fact that you had the lead at half, despite Shannon and Domask, having 6 points at halftime combined. But Quincy Guerrier, you're seeing, I think in the last couple weeks here, you're seeing a supporting cast around Terrence Shannon that can actually support him to get the most out of what is probably an All-American player. Marcus Domask, what he did at FAU, and now Quincy Guerrier with a season-high 22 points, just 5 points off his career high. That's got to be a huge confidence booster for a guy whose wrist had been bothering him to, come into the game 2 for 20 from three. They're not guarding you from three, and to make three in the first half, I thought was a really big boost to Illinois. And if he can shoot 30% plus from three, that's just going to open things up more for this offense, whether it's him making them or it's opening up the lanes for Domask and Shannon, right? Especially if Coleman Hawkins can make 3 threes or multiple threes in a game like he did today. I thought Coleman, at the end of the game, didn't shoot all that well. 4 of 13 for the game, 3 of 10 from three, probably settled for a few there. Continues to take some that you want back. But I thought he was the reason you had a chance in the second half. Like, he was really good. He was really impactful. And then Luke Goody off the bench, just energy guy, 8 points, 7 rebounds, made a couple threes. I thought your supporting cast showed up and helped those guys and gave you a chance. It's just at some point you needed Domask and Shannon to take over, and they just never were really able to do that until it was kind of out of hand and they just kept making free throws. But Guerrier, that's really encouraging for Illinois. And to have Coleman Hawkins back last week, it is shown on the court.
No doubt. Yeah, it's big for Quincy to be able to find that three-point shot. A guy that shot 35% from three last year at Oregon has been someone that has improved every year in terms of his efficiency from beyond the arc. Now, this year, obviously, the slow start's probably going to hinder his overall stats, and we'll see if he can find a consistency from beyond the arc. But like to see him get some confidence back in that shot. And then just, when you saw them, as far as Tennessee's defense, then kind of reacting to it, then he shows the ability to shot fake and drive it. And he's a physical guy going downhill, and obviously not as twitchy or ability to change direction like a Terrence Shannon, but as a straight line driver off a pump fake, driving the closeout, like he can go in there and hunt some contact and get to the free throw line. I mean, he's 5 for 7 at the line today. On the quick bright side too, also, I mean, no one's shooting free throws better. So there is that. Yes. 24 for 28.
The right guys are shooting them, and Ty's making a few now. Like, that's huge. Yeah. 3 or 4 for Ty Rodgers. He's made 7 of his last 10. He'll take that.
Yeah, no doubt. It just feels like, this supporting cast is better than obviously last year. They're older. They got an ability to support your star power a lot better. I feel like with Quincy, I think Justin Harmon, obviously against FAU, and Luke Goody in the first half in particular. What do you have, like 5 or 6 rebounds in the 10 minutes that he played in the first half, and that was huge. And then he's been someone that you expect to make a couple of threes any given night. And Coleman, I think his stat line probably got a little worse there late because Illinois was trying to play catch up, but his three ball was important to knock down those shots. And then he just the play that Shannon finds a streaking Coleman, and he makes that a great pass through the defense, and that's just a hustle play by Coleman. He also has 4 assists of his own and a couple steals. He was just very active, and just felt like it was a step forward for him as he's getting more comfortable and finding himself again, and hopefully getting that confidence, because we can say it over and over again. It's true. He can just take this team to another level if he's playing up to his capabilities.
All right, we'll get to your questions about the Illini basketball loss. We will talk a little bit about the new Illinois football transfer defensive line addition, Anise Sledge, who has 3 years of eligibility left, and more transfers that are on campus right now. We'll talk about that here coming up. We'll get to your questions, but first, let's hear from one of our great sponsors.
Home field apparel since the start of the season. There are a lot of collegiate apparel brands out there, but we wanted to partner with Home Field because their designs are the best out there. Some of Illini Inquirer's favorites are the basketball ringer tee, the rose tee, and the 1980s long sleeve with the script Illini. It's great. Be sure to check out homefieldapparel.com, filter by Illinois, and see what we're talking about. And our listeners get an exclusive deal using code Illini23. Using that code Illini23 gets you 15% off your first order. We all know you're wearing Illini gear, so if you're in need of a refresh, we really think that you should check out Home Field Apparel, which has the best designs, and these shirts, guys, are really comfortable. Their designs are super unique, and a lot of thought goes into each concept. There's really nothing else on the market like what Home Field is doing. You can find them at homefieldapparel.com and use code Illini23 for 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com.
All right, Derek. Assists in this game. Illinois had 9, 21 for Tennessee. Tennessee moved the ball extremely well. Again, I just thought their offense was clicking at certain points. Dalton Connect obviously took over and shows why he's one of the best transfers and why Indiana really needed him because he's a really talented scorer, potential top 40 pick in the NBA draft, potential first-round draft pick. But Illinois didn't move the ball. They have gone to this matchup offense. Like, they are going ISO, but it's usually Marcus Damask backing somebody down, or it's Terrence Shannon going one-on-one. Listen, it worked against FAU. Didn't work as well tonight. But what do you make of what they're doing offensively, and did they need to run different stuff at some point tonight?
I think it's a good question. I think that they would have benefited from getting a few more stops, then maybe try to play out and transition a little bit more. Don't let Tennessee's defense get set, because they're a high-level defense, obviously high level in the half court, and when they can really load up, in their spots on the lanes, it's really tough, regardless of what you're trying to hit them with. I think it's a fair point for those that are saying, hey, it does show that without a true point guard, that point guards, one of their biggest skills is getting where they want to go off the bounce, and when you make it difficult on a team to slow you from getting into the paint and getting into where this defense thrives at making it tough. But I think that with Shannon having a hard time to get there, and they were shading him, like when he was coming off ball screens, which is probably why they didn't run a ton of ball screen stuff for him in the second half, is they were hedging him. They were keeping the big out. So it was really kind of bottling him up in that sense. So it was then kind of ISO situations, but without a point guard to really get into the teeth of the defense and break things down and facilitate. I mean, that's a big reason why you have that assist difference. And Marcus is bringing it up, and he gets his pocket pick a couple of times because he's not a true point. And Ty doesn't attempt a shot, and I know he has 2 assists, 3 points, 2 assists, 1 turn, but he's just very limited offensively for being your quote-unquote point guard. So I think that's part of it too. Obviously, as much as we're going to come back to that, for as much or little as we do the rest of the year, Illinois not going to probably figure that thing out. So we'll see. We'll see. But I do think it's a credit to Tennessee. I think for the most part, over the 3-game sample size, Illinois did take strides forward offensively on the big picture. Like having Damask in the mid post as being a staple of your offense, I think is a big deal. I think teams, for the most part, will have a hard time dealing with that. I think Terrence, obviously downhill, and not many teams can bottle him up like that. I think for Quincy to do what he did tonight, for Coleman to get going a little bit, those are all positives for an Illinois offense that, I think I was looking at their KenPom, they're top 25 offensive efficiency now after, before this stretch, They were in the 60s.
Yeah, they're number 23. Their defense down to number 15, Derek, and I wanted to ask you this. Florida Atlantic, 1.19 points per possession. Tennessee, 1.16. Is this defense as good as we thought it was, or are these just 2 great teams that they were running against?
I still think they're pretty good defensively. I don't know if they're elite. I think that we'll obviously have to see a bigger sample size to prove that out. I think they do have some very, very good individual defenders. Terrence, Ty on the perimeters. I think, Quincy with his physicality, we know that Coleman's got the ability to cover a lot of ground and be an impactful defender against some really good players. But I think defensive rebounding is something they need to take another step forward with to really separate themselves between being very good and potentially great at that end. You can't let teams get those second chance points. And that's kind of been something that some of these teams, even in the last 2 games, have been able to get is some of those loose balls, those 50-50s. Illinois has to cut that out. And then when you have teams like Marquette, and I think Tennessee did a good job of it too, when you got a number of different guys that can drive you, I think that kind of can exploit Illinois. I think,
Yeah.
Luke Goody's not a great defender, especially in space. I think against, some guys with some downhill ability off the bounce, and Marcus Damas, same thing. So I think there are, and then Dane, I know people probably want to talk about him a little bit, only playing 4 minutes. He's also who I kind of throw in there as a weak link. I think Illinois has a couple of weak links, or at least just maybe average defenders at best, and can be exploited a little bit. But for the most part, this is still a pretty good, very good defense. Just maybe, obviously not the same as Tennessee, if you're asking me, in terms of, elite.
We knew Coleman Hawkins' return would impact Dane Danger's minutes significantly. He played 8 minutes against Rutgers, Dane Danger, 11 against Fort Atlantic, 4 tonight against Tennessee. A lot of people calling for more Dane. I will say that Brad Underwood said after the game, I have to find more ways to get Coleman and Dane together, which I found interesting. Probably hard to do with the way Quincy was playing tonight, and I do think Coleman was the better option. For anybody that thinks Coleman is not the better option, I just don't know where you're watching. I will continue to repeat that over and over again. He is so impactful defensively, and I think he spaces things out offensively. I thought he could have been more aware of where he was for some of those with Marcus, like you were talking about, but I think he makes a better overall impact. But do you think Dane will get worked in here more? Do you think there's an argument to work him in a little bit more? Because we know the player is one-on-one.
I think he's going to. As you look at the schedule, Colgate, Missouri, things soften up a little bit. FDU, he should be able to get some opportunities to play some bigger minutes. But Dane's got to be more solid. I thought early on he was pretty decent. Had a block, then was able to have a second and a third effort on the offensive glass to really put one in there to follow his own miss. And I thought his time was short. He looked fine. He looked fine out there. He does have to cut down on turnovers. He got pegged for one on a moving screen. I don't know if that was his fault or if that was Terrence going too soon on that one. But it's really just, as you look back at the FAU game and just some of what's plagued Dane is not simplifying offensively, trying to do too much, being someone that's dribbling for the Rutgers game too, dribbling too much for a big man. And he does limit you defensively for sure. But he is a guy you can go to for a bucket. He's another scoring avenue in terms of throwing it down to him inside. He does hit the offensive glass a decent amount to be able to do that as well. I don't know that this game necessarily goes differently with Dane in terms of trying to throw it inside against a physical team. And Dane just hasn't played all that great. But, yeah, 4 minutes, I understand people maybe wanting more of that. But Dane's got to play better to earn a consistent role on this team. And that's still something he has to achieve.
I asked Brad Underwood after the game what he learned about his team, Derek, and he said, we're really good. They feel really confident about this team, even after this loss. He goes, I don't say that very often. He feels good about this team, and he knows they haven't arrived yet. But I think they learned a lot against Marquette that maybe they weren't ready for that win, Derek. But they learned that they weren't ready, and here's what you have to do offensively to be a little bit better. They've improved since that game, and that showed against Rutgers, and I would even say today in Fort Atlantic, obviously. But now, what do you think they can learn from this game? Because Brad Underwood obviously thinks they haven't even come close to their ceiling yet.
Yeah, I think that you are going to learn that there's some things you got to do when a team's going to try to take away Terrence, and it can successfully do that, and how you pivot away from that, how you get some more playmaking off the dribble to create some shots for other guys, how many amount of threes you want to be able to take, and what shots are ones that are, you're able to get, but maybe you need to work for a better one, or need to find a way to get the ball inside and to the paint, whether it's a post entry, obviously, or just driving it. So I think that, as we kind of talked about, I think they've added some more layers to their offense. I think they can continue to expand there. You got to be able to keep adding, keep evolving, and figuring that thing out. Defensively, yeah, it's as far as the rebounding, the loose balls, just cleaning up some little things. But yeah, to have seen Tennessee, Marquette, FAU, Kansas throw in the exhibition, those are 4 high-level teams that you've gone 2-2 against. I know that you're not counting the Kansas one as a legit win, but they've had an ability to really test themselves, learn about what they like, what they don't, and for the most part, yeah, I think this team has obviously performed pretty well, and there are definitely some things to like, and more growth areas too. There's been flashes of Gary A, or really Coleman to this point because of his lack of consistency in terms of playing with his knee issue. Justin Harmon, those are things you can build on. Luke's been good. So yeah, I think that all in all, you're pretty encouraged. I get why he's encouraged, big picture, and you just got to continue to progress, because last year's team showed some good things early. December they peaked. They didn't progress on and take the next steps. They fell off a cliff instead. So it's about continuing to get better over the course of the season. I'm encouraged by the progress they've made so far, but they got to obviously continue to build on it.
Yeah, and the rest of this month's important. Like Colgate has made 4 straight NCAA tournaments. Missouri, that game's been a problem in the Brad Underwood era, where they've come out more physical and tougher than you and wanted the game more. And that's a high major opponent away from home. Fairleigh Dickinson, obviously you're going to win that one. But wrap this up 3-0 in the non-conference, going to the meat of conference play at 10-2, Derek. I'd say that's a pretty successful non-conference where you showed you can compete with Marquette, compete with Tennessee. You can crush a Rutgers team that I'm not very high on, but you can crush them on the road in a tough place to play, and you can compete at Tennessee, a really tough place to play, and beat a team like Fort Atlantic on a neutral court. Like, I think that'd be a pretty encouraging wrap up to the non-conference, but now you got to do it.
100%. Yeah, you got to now avoid a loss that you're going to regret. Any of those coming up, and Missouri's a rivalry game, but they're not a very good team. They're an older team, but they're obviously not having a great year so far, not shaping up to look like a surefire, return to the NCAA tournament type of situation for them. So you owe them, really. I know that there's some new faces on Illinois side of things, and guys like Quincy and Marcus and Justin aren't maybe going to understand or feel that same type of way, but I'm sure Terrence and Coleman and those guys who were involved in last year's embarrassment. You not only lost, you got embarrassed over there at bragging rights, that you're going to want to handle that one. So 10-2, if you go back into Big Ten play, nothing to be ashamed about. You should feel pretty decent about it. It would have been nice to get one of Marquette or Tennessee as that real bona fide, next level win. I think FAU is a very good win. I think either one of those against Marquette or Tennessee would have been a great win. But you'll have,
because if you win one of those, Derek, you're not even worrying about NCAA tournament. Like, that's not
right,
even
yeah.
Like, because as long as you go 500 in the Big Ten, like if you have those 2 wins, you're not worried about it. But yeah, now you'd like to get a couple more before you get more quad 1 wins potentially in the Big Ten.
Right. Yeah, and those are the type of games that could take you maybe a seed level or 2 up. Really bolster you. And if you're talking about a path in March, which that's really what you're working towards, those are the type of games that can be real difference makers. Not that Illinois won't have opportunities to stack them in Big Ten play. Beating Purdue, especially on the road early January, would really be one that would mean a lot. I don't think you're fretting too much because you didn't take care of this one, or you lost on your home court against Marquette, which not that you're feeling great about it, but I do think that it's laid out to where Illinois has been able to, offensively was ugly for the most part early. I think they made some strides. They fixed some things in terms of some slow starts. Like I didn't think that was a problem necessarily, although defensively maybe today, but just in general. But they look like a good team. I'm still buying them, and still think there's some things they can work on to continue to grow.
Any final thoughts, Derek, from Knoxville, whether it's this arena? That kind of reminds me of the Indiana Pacers arena, and they fit a lot of people in here, man.
It was loud. Yeah. Rocky Top, they play that a lot. We heard that early for sure. But this place was juiced, and it's huge. Yeah, 21,000, the 5th largest college basketball arena. It delivered. It got going there, especially, Dalton Connect had 8 of the 10 during their 10-0 run. That play where they get an offensive rebound and kick it out to him for 3 was a huge play there, middle of the second half, and it just felt like Illinois never got a lead back after that, and we're kind of kept at arm's length. So I wonder what it was going to be like in an SEC environment, and a team that has been really, really good over the last couple of years, and it delivered after we finally got here, thanks to the 5K for slowing us down out there. That had Jeremy all flustered and whatnot.
Logistical nightmare. That's what I will say getting into this arena. But yes, I've calmed down since then.
But it was a fun 8 days to see some meaningful games and get out on the road and see some different environments too. So
we need to get Derek Piper. We need to get Derek Piper home though. We need to get you home. Get you around Cade for a while and Haley.
I got to decorate my Christmas tree tomorrow. Get around my son, my wife, and I'll enjoy that coming up for sure.
All right, Derek Piper, we're going to let Joey Wagner get on here and talk some football, but thanks, man.
Anytime.
All right, Joey Wagner's on, and I got a new pronunciation for you because Illinois football has a new defensive lineman, their second transfer defensive lineman, so let's break it down. His name is Enichi, Joey. Enichi Sledge. That is how you pronounce it according to the Auburn pronunciation guide. So the Auburn defensive lineman, 3 years of eligibility, 6'2", 310 pounds. Only played about 25, 30 snaps at Auburn the last couple of years, but former 3-star prospect, had a bunch of Power 5 offers. Looks like a nose tackle to me, Joey. So potential Denzel Daxon replacement here, but a Power 5 transfer on the defensive line. They need talent on the defensive line, and this guy's a talent. What do you think?
Yeah, we knew that they had to replace a lot on the defensive line, and we knew it was going to come by the transfer portal. I think it's noteworthy that this has been more of a portal rebuild, I guess temporary rebuild, rather than going to the junior college ranks, even though we know they're still active there. You needed someone, and the other part is this does feel like a Denzel Daxon replacement. That's a good sell that Illinois has at the nose guard. Like, we talk a lot, justifiably so, about Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph and the way that they've developed. Calvin Avery played his best football of his career in his final season. Denzel Daxon came in really an under-the-radar guy from Ohio, right? A guy that really moved a lot of needles for people last offseason. He played really, really good football. And that position is one that this staff has shown it can develop.
Yeah, Terrence Jameson's done a fantastic job getting the most out of Calvin Avery, right? He's had a cup of coffee in the NFL, and Denzel Daxon might have a chance to get in an NFL camp here. So they've done a really good job with those guys. And now, you got him and Clay Patterson that, T-Raw Edwards, I believe, should be able to return for another year. So that's a good rotation, you feel, with Sledge and Edwards, who's proven himself as a good rotational piece. I thought could have been an okay starter, solid starter for them this past year, but Daxon outplayed him. Clay Patterson from Yale comes in, should be a solid to good starter, in my opinion. And now you could probably use one more. And I have on our site now another defensive lineman who is transferring. He's arriving today. So they've attacked that. That's their number one need, Joey, to sort of see Terrence Jameson and Brett Bielema close on those guys early is really encouraging, because is it going to be as good as Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph? No, but you got to be competitive. And they've lost 5 of their top 6 defensive linemen from last year, right? Bryce Barnes is involved in that. Sid McConnell transfers out. Denzel Daxon, Keith Randolph, Johnny Newton. So they got to replenish and they got to add more here, but that's certainly been a good start so far.
Yeah, they're acting urgently too, right? This isn't this case where they're letting this thing fill up and see who's available in late December or whatever the case is. They've come out of the gates really swinging, identifying their guys, going out and getting them on campus quickly. I know Clay Patterson committed before he visited, but that we thought and we knew this was going to be an urgent position, but they've been really, really aggressive in throwing offers around out there and getting guys here, getting commitments. So I think the urgency is what we thought, but it's also telling because, look, we've talked a lot about the staff's approach in the portal. And this staff is urgently attacking the transfer portal at defensive line as it did a year ago with the quarterback.
Yeah, and I think it's important. Like we've brought up, and we talked in our chain mail about this, like they need to go get more Power 5 guys, by Power 5 transfers. I think those guys that they can get are still the guys that are looking for opportunity, right? Like Illinois' best sell is opportunity development. And Enichi Sledge is buying into that. Plus, Illinois had a previous relationship here. They recruited him. He's from Monroe, Louisiana. They recruited him out of high school and had a previous relationship. So that adds up, right? A guy who wants opportunity, a previous relationship there. They can sell the development they've had on the defensive line. That lines up. Like, I don't expect Illinois to go into the portal and land the top guy out of Alabama who's already proven himself, right? They're going to have to get the guy who's looking for the opportunity. So this one lines up, but they are looking at guys, whether it's defensive back, defensive line, offensive line, who have played at the Power 5 level that are looking for a better opportunity.
Yeah, look, they're going to, you got a lot of snaps available in the Big Ten. Like, that's as good. Sledge's 15 career snaps, I believe, Jeremy, that you wrote. Derek Piper's in here causing a scene. 15 career snaps. So, I mean, look, Illinois is going to give him a chance to come in there. And I think we'd have to say right now, wrestle that job away from T.Y. Edwards, just as going in terms of a guy who's already been on campus for 2 years. But you're right. That's the sell. It's how they – it's part of the sell with Luke Altmaier a year ago, a guy who needed an opportunity to come out and play. Tommy DeVito needed an opportunity for a fresh start, even though he had more – career snaps than really anybody they've gone to get out of the portal. So opportunity's big, man. And Illinois is really, really selling that and throwing it around.
They're hosting a defensive back, JUCO kid, Chase Canada out of a JUCO. I understand everybody's apprehension, or I guess I should say, like, what's the word I'm looking for here, Joey?
I mean, the recent
doubts about JUCO defensive backs.
The recent impact has led to some of those doubts, right?
Yeah. So like, I understand that,
impact.
But he's talented. But they're looking at some other defensive backs. They could get another defensive back on campus later this weekend. So be on the lookout for that. But I'll throw this out there. Probably the biggest transfer, in my opinion, that's visiting this weekend is offensive lineman J.C. Davis out of New Mexico. He's an all Mountain West Conference left tackle who has 1 year of eligibility left, but had ridiculous PFF grades this past year. What can you do at the next highest level in the Big Ten? Obviously, that's going to be an adjustment, but this is a guy who's played offensive tackle at the FBS level. Illinois does not have many of those guys. Brandon Henderson has not played tackle at this level. Zy Chrysler's got 2 games of it, and it didn't go very well. So that's the most important one to me, because if you can come out of this weekend with 2 defensive linemen already, maybe a third, and a starting left tackle, that'd be a heck of a start to this transfer portal season. I would imagine some defensive backs will be added here in the coming weeks as well.
Yeah, you have addressed your 2 biggest needs in the portal. If that's how this weekend shapes out for Illinois. And then if that's how it goes, defensive backs moves into number 1. And with probably not a very close second place in terms of needs that you still need to address this offseason. Yeah, that would be second. I still think there's a gap between what you need at defensive backs and tight ends. But yeah, to go out, if you can go out and get a left tackle, it gives you some versatility with Brandon Henderson, who you and I still think is going to be in that mix for left tackle. He can move over to right, or he could slide in at guard. There's more options there because you've got to replace Julian Pearl. You've got to replace Isaiah Adams, and those are a lot of snaps, a lot of really good snaps, productive snaps, and you need someone who's played at the FBS level like that. Tackles are hard to come by in the portal, man. It's kind of go back and see how the NFL draft prioritizes positions. Like the transfer portal is the same way, right? Quarterback, tackles, edge. And those, that's what it comes down to. So if you can go out and address that need, if that's how it shakes out, that'd be a really big addition for Illinois if they can close it.
Yeah, we know they've recruited some other Power 5 guards, right? Remington Strickland, Kevin Wigginton out of Michigan State. Strickland's a former top 500 prospect out of Texas A&M. You had 2 guys like that to your offensive lineman with Chrysler, Henderson, Kreutz, Geske, Whitenack returning. Like all of a sudden, I feel like that offensive line could be pretty good. I think they could be pretty good going to next year. You got a little bit more depth. I still think they need a couple more defensive linemen, need to add some defensive backs, but it seems like they've set themselves up here well. And the one thing I've noticed, either talking to transfers or just seeing it, is Brett Bielema's involvement. And when he's hit the road, he visited J.C. Davis, he visited Clay Patterson and his family in different states and different parts of the country on the same day. He is getting so involved, and that makes an impact when the coach calls you with an offer, when the coach visits you, when he coach visits your parents or whoever is important in your life. Bielema is making an impact by prioritizing guys. I feel like that's worth mentioning here because he's gotten after it the last 2 weeks, and he needs to, right? He has to, because this is a huge, important year coming up where everyone's going to have doubt after a 5-7 season and losing some of your best players to the NFL. You got to get after it and add talent.
Yeah, and we should also say, this isn't the first year Brett Bielema has been, I guess we should say, the lead recruiter on transfers. And I think you asked him about it at some point, maybe back in the spring. And he said, he takes over on those. Clayton Bush was a guy who Brett Bielema called up immediately and had him on the phone and really led the charge there. So he does. I'd have to dig up the quote. That's a good task for our drive to Louisville after this to just see what he said. But he kind of understands, it sounds like, that there's urgency with those guys, and you want to make a big impact and make a big impact early on in that recruiting process. So it is worth mentioning for sure how active he gets. And it's not to just a final point of it. It's not like Terrence Jameson's calling Clay Patterson and, hey, I got this guy, he'll give you a call. Like Brett Bielema is the first voice that they hear from Illinois. And I think that's a statement. It's not going to matter to everybody, right? But it sure resonates with some people, and you've seen that and you've heard that in talking to some of these guys.
And we've said it, when they get them on official visits, it's worth noticing because Illinois does a pretty good job closing once they get them here. Like they pull off official visits pretty well. So stay tuned to Illini Inquirer. We got plenty more coming up. Any final thoughts, Joey, before we get out of here and head to Louisville?
No, it's worth the urgency is really telling to me, and they've addressed these needs very, very quickly, and I think that's worth mentioning a few times because this. If someone asked, I think maybe on the last podcast or on the board, said, will this be wrapped up by Christmas? And this might be they're trying to wrap this thing up by like the 15th. And they're moving very, very quickly here. And that doesn't mean like they're shutting the transfer portal door and saying we're not looking at anything, but they're not really waiting around. They want to get these guys committed. And I would assume Jeremy tried to get them here in January for winter conditioning and the spring ball.
It is so competitive to get them on campus first. To get them on campus at all, and then to close it down quickly because this is such a whirlwind. Like the calendar is crazy for these coaches, and listen, they make a lot of money. I know, but like this is a really important time of roster building, all scrunched into this. Plus, they're going out and flying and seeing all their prep prospects who are going to sign later this month. It is a really important time of roster building for Illinois football right now. All right, for Joey Wagner, Derek Piper, I'm Jeremy Werner. Thanks to everybody on the live YouTube channel. Hit the like button on the way out. Appreciate all you guys for tuning in. We got to make it halfway back to Champaign tonight. We'll make it to Louisville. We got plenty of content coming at Illini Inquirer for both Illinois basketball and Illinois football. So everybody have a great night. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.